Our topic for today is how we used or layered the Bayesian approach on what we traditionally do as customer analytics, and which is a deterministic modeling. And you would have heard of it in B2C as well as B2B context. When any organization is trying to maximize the revenue that they can get from any customer, and while they would like to see who is high value, they would also like to see who is high risk of attrition. And the same way, when they evaluate high risk of attrition, they would also want to see, is this a high value customer that I should be putting my money on to retain? So those are the kind of business problems that we have solved through our careers. And there are certain things that we have used. More importantly, I think with the changing ecosystem of the entire buying behavior, what we did in this particular case with this customer was not just give a lifetime value or an indicator saying he's high risk. And we're talking about a B2B customer. So think of someone who's selling laptops and servers and other services to enterprises. We also gave an explanation through Bayesian network as to which is the factor that's highly influencing the lifetime value, which is making them stick to you in some sense. So that is really the context setting for this presentation. And so I welcome Anand to give us the details. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, Buvana. Thanks for setting up the context. So I'll quickly get on to what study we did. So this is the agenda that we are going to cover today. So we will start with the background, a customer experience analytics model followed by a customer lifetime value model. Then we will also look at what market research data that we have. And finally, we'll get into a network analysis to see what possibly we can do and what we have done for our customer. Buvana has already explained in the introduction, the economic landscape and the customer purchasing patterns are drastically changing these days, especially due to the different market conditions, the market factors, socioeconomic conditions. There are a lot of things that is coming into picture where something that is being traditionally established has to be relooked or improvised to provide value in the recent times. So that's why that's an objective to this background. What is the importance of enhancing the existing logical methodologies, which are very well established, by leveraging the different machine learning techniques that we have? So this is, to put it in a simple way, this is to look at what traditionally we have been doing, how we can create more value out of the system by doing certain ML techniques on top of it. Right? Now, this majorly covers two things. One is to identify factors that drive customer lifetime value and suggest recommendations to improve the client opportunities. Now, one very important aspect here is, as we all know, setting up a network analysis or a causal network analysis needs a lot of investment and time. So scalability is one of the important aspects which any client or customer would look at when they are investing on time. They want to make sure that what we create is usable across different levels, like different countries, different segments. So that's also something that we kept in mind while designing this entire ecosystem. Now, looking at the B2B customer experience analytics, so we identify customers in 5 major zones. So the first is a potential customer. The second is an active customer. Then we have a key high value partner who has achieved and reached on the top, followed by an inactive and a lost customer. Now, between these customer personas or customer positions, there is a scope of doing a wide variety of analytics. So this slide, I just wanted to give lights on to the various possibilities related to the customer experience analysis, right? So when a potential customer is identified, we could start with customer profiling, segmentation, and targeting, then followed by a propensity to buy. Once we have this propensity to buy, we can look at cross-sell, upsell opportunities, and then do a customer scoring, and finally provide a customer lifetime value analysis. So this is something that we initially, and once the customer becomes an active customer, we can look at customer satisfaction analysis, loyalty and sentimental analysis, then provide personalized recommendations to the customer. Now, identifying drivers of B2B customer satisfaction at different touch points are really important here. And we need to simulate these drivers, which are driving CSAT and other customer experience metrics. When we do the customer lifetime value, we can do a lot of analysis like recency, frequency, monitoring analysis, predicting the revenue for next set of time periods, then understand the potential revenue in the next time and identify the CLV for specific accounts. Now, this is a very typical process that we follow, and we try to bring the customer from potential to active and active to high value partner. Right. And then once the customer is there, do a customer experience management and do recommendations on products and services to enhance the customer experience. Now, there are two other different states which typically a company do not want the customers to fall in. That is an inactive state and a lost state, right? So we need to identify before this inactivity crops up or becomes more evident. So hence, we can do a propensity to churn analysis where we will identify customers' propensity to churn and then do specific targeted surveys and loss analysis to bring them back onto the actual path, right? So if you're able to do that, then land good. Now, once you do that, also continue with analyzing inactive and dormant customers because there would still be a lot of people who can go still down and become a lost customer. And when we have a lost customer, we do not end the business there because we can reach out to the lost customer with high potential re-win teams, right? So this is the entire genre of activities that we can do. And any business will typically understand that retaining your existing customers is very crucial and more profitable than acquiring a new customer, right? So my personal take or what I have understood by doing this analysis is it's really important to understand the risk index of all the customers to maintain them in your ecosystem and then hit your business and run your business in a proper. And CLV, doing value analysis, gives you an added benefit on top. Now, this is a phased approach to the CLV modeling that I've done. So I have a prior and a post to this. Now, the prior to CLV is opportunity data. So our client was in the technology domain, and all the technology domain clients typically does an opportunity analysis to see where does their business stand? What is the future potential? What possible sales could come? So this is something that any technology firm does to identify and track the sales activity. Opportunity data analysis provides visibility for planning strategies, and it also helps us in identifying gap and working towards the same. While we do the CLV model, we also get an opportunity to understand the different upsell, cross-sell opportunity, do a market basket analysis. There are a lot of add-ons like we have seen in the last slide that there are multiple things we can do along with CLV. Now, the most important part that we have done here is strengthening of CLV models, right? So we can strengthen the CLV models based on a network where we are bringing the survey data, right? Customer experience data. Now, we have a very important assumption here that our experience, if we improve the customer experience, we'll be able to increase their lifetime value, right? This is an assumption that also we wanted to test it out through this experiment, right? And we want to do continuous survey where we'll be able to understand how with each survey or with each wave, how much improvement we are making in each of the customer metric, and in turn, how much it is helping us to improve the CLV and reduce the churn. Okay? So these were the two assumptions that we want to test out. Now, let me start the customer lifetime value analysis that we have done. I'll try to go rather quickly. So the major things that we do, or the general thing that we do, is like variables to features to factors to model. Right. So as most of you are aware about this step, I do not want to spend a lot of time on the first aspect, because I just wanted to show how we typically approach a problem. Now, coming to the bottom part, the data sources that we had, the opportunities data, we had the billings transaction level data and the market research data. We also had the search data, organic search data. We did a data preparation followed by a data transformation, and the modeling approach consisted of a CLV model, which was based on BG, NBD, and GAM, followed by a network graph of relationship between the different data sets, and then an analytical recommendations on top of it, right? So key outputs that we delivered was value for the OEM accounts, upsell opportunities, and recommendations on the predicted LTV. Now, this is a slightly more detailed step on our approach, which starts with data discovery and harmonization, where we identify the different data sources, data harmonization, restructuring, everything was done. And this is basically saying about what data we had from a historical perspective and how we combined it. And the output of this stage is simply a clean single data source, which has all the variables that can be used in the analysis. EDA and recency frequency monetary analysis was also conducted. EDA helped us in identifying the different data distribution, trends, patterns, etc., and what is customer bringing to the most revenue over a span of 4 historical years. Now, we had a high-level overview of the data distribution and variables quality. We also got a better understanding of the insights data. Now, the model selection, this is just telling about what model we did. And it had 2 segments, and each of the segments delivered different parameters. And we also did a validation, cross-validation of the transaction prediction, and customer churn probabilities were obtained, and expected future monetary values were also calculated. And in the final step, the CLV values for all the accounts and defined time periods were obtained. This was a very important slide for us because we did not typically, when we get a problem, we experiment that data with different techniques before deciding which technique we have to go ahead with. So for this particular problem also, we had a couple of methods or solutions in our mind. So we wanted to try out everything and see how the data is behaving with each of these conditions. Now, after doing this trial and error, we decided to go with the BGNBD model. So now the emphasis of this slide is to show you that since CLB is a very old and established techniques, there are n number of methods that is available, which you can use based on your requirement and the type of data that you have. So still we wanted to try out a few techniques to see that how each of it is different and what value it is generating. Now, the architecture that we chose is to first construct a CLV model and then to strengthen the CLV model, as I already discussed. So we had components in the CLV model, BGNBD come up, and we obtained all the key metrics out of this. Like we had the RFM scores, we had the BGNBD model output with the expected average order values. Now, all of this output is going into the next phase of modeling, which is strengthening the CLV model, where we are utilizing key metrics along with the CX data. We are using the Bayesian network modeling, where we are analyzing the visual strength of association between key metrics to CLV and churn. Now, once the CLV phase is done, we wanted to look at the market research data and organic research data a little more deeper before we wanted to do a network analysis. Why? Because in the CLV phase, we did a separate EDA where we understood the different patterns and trends. Similarly, we wanted to conduct this analysis on the market research data along with the CLV metrics that we obtained in the CLV modeling phase. Now, the idea here is to show some representation of the EDAs that we did and to list down few of the assumptions that we made before we got into the network analysis. Now, we have not plotted every metric here, but the idea and the assumption is that in order to measure the customer loyalty, we considered NPS score as an important factor. And we also believe market research data helps doing a lot of segmentation, and it also gives us an idea of where the customer lifetime value stands with the customer experience perspective, with respect to customer experience perspective. Now, results, if we use the results of surveys very effectively and update that in our product and solution offerings, then we can definitely see an improvement in terms of frequency, recency, and monitoring. So these were the major assumptions we had before we started the model. And here also you can see a lot of plots that has been used to see how the NPS score is varying over a time. All of this data is masked, and that's why you will see some names in the form of colors. And we also looked at organic search data. So we wanted to see how the market research data or customer experience data is spanning in parallel to the organic search data, and how the CLV is looking from a time to time perspective. So these are various views that we did before we started into the network analysis. Now, this is the final and last section of our modeling approach. So the first, we did the CLV modeling. Second, we did an EDA on all other data sources available. And then we decided what has to be taken from all this study, what has to be excluded from the study. We did certain correlation analysis to see which would give us a potential score and helpful insights. Now, we majorly did two networks. One network was to understand the customer lifetime value. Another network was constructed to understand the churn risk. Here, we can clearly see that CLV has a very strong association with revenue quantity and frequency. It has direct connections with these major variables. And though we cannot see the customer experience variable directly connecting to CLV, but all the customer experience variables are connected to recency, especially NPS and effectiveness. In turn, they are connected to frequency and to CLV. So one key inference that we derived of this network is that when we do a typical CLV model, we will get values in a table format, right? We will know what is the ranking, what is the contributions coming, but we never know what is the node force, how much potential this variable has in the presence of other variables and how these variables are connected to each other. For example, here, you clearly see that there is a strong connection between CLV and revenue. Now, you also see that there is a strong connection between trust, ease, and NPS. So, we are able to make a lot of conclusions and also an assumption that working on trust, NPS, ease would help you to improve your recency. And once they are more recent, they could, in a way, come and generate more lifetime value, right? So that would be one assumption to work out. Or the other way to say about it, if you want to improve your CLV, you can go work on your recency with your customers and see that how the recency can be improved from the customer experience metrics. So this was the insights that we got from the CLV model. When I go to the churn model, here we had a very interesting finding that the customer experience variable ease of doing business is directly connected to the LI probability, which is in a way telling us the churn probability. And we see that though in the first network, it was revenue and quantity, here we see that recency and frequency has more connection or more impact on your churn. And we also see that trust and NPS is very strongly connected with their association. What I want to say here is when you do traditional modeling approaches, you definitely get certain values. It could be deterministic. So we wanted to convert from a deterministic point to a more probabilistic point where a lot of possibilities that could exist between it. And you clearly know which variable has importance in the presence of the other variables and how strongly they are connected to each other. And you also get to know by changing what quantum of one variable the target will get in. Yeah. So after analyzing the network, we came to this contributions table where we evaluated the total effect and direct effect. So in the first CLV models, all the CLV metrics is coming on top, followed by the customer experience metrics. And we see that in a way, it is connected to recency and then to the CLV. But in the second table, we can clearly see that ease of doing business and trust have upper hand as compared to revenue and quantity in terms of determining the churn for you. So that becomes very important finding for us. And we can clearly work on these factors like ease of doing business and trust, because for this particular organization, that seems to be a very crucial point in deciding your churn, right? Like I said in the beginning, I see that risk models for existing customer base are more important to work out and then work on the CLV. And if you follow this step, you should be able to see more results. Certain organization focuses more on the CLV than on the churn. Those organizations are typically the ones which are very established and top of the market segment. Churn models are important to consider for those organizations where there's a lot of competition in the market and they want to really bring up their customer base and reward them with different loyalty programs and then sustain and help grow their business. So these are some of the findings that we had. And finally, I want to show, sorry for making it rather quick. Hope we can take up things in the question session. So this is just a simulator view where you can do it for, especially because this is a B2B segment, where you can select each of your accounts and see that which of the factors you want to improve, keeping churn and CLV separately in mind, and see that how you can improve your customer experience score over a longer or a continuous period of time. And in a way, you can see how your CLV or churn score is improving with respect to your actions that you have taken on the market research side of things.